Imagine waking up in a Stone Age cave 30,000 years ago. You feel hollow inside. You don't want to get up. You don't want to hunt. You don't want to talk. There are no pills, no therapists, no self-help books, no psychiatrists. And here's the strangest part. You probably wouldn't have died alone in a corner. You probably wouldn't even have been called depressed. Because in the world your ancestors built, what we call mental illness today wasn't a private collapse. It was a tribal event. And the way they handled it, without a single piece of modern medicine, was so effective that some of it is being rediscovered by psychologists right now. Today, we're going somewhere uncomfortable. Because the more we learn about how ancient humans survived their darkest moments, the more we realize one thing. Modern loneliness isn't a feature, it's a glitch. And our ancestors had the cure 30,000 years before we forgot. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Depression isn't new. The deep, crushing weight you feel on a bad day, it's been hitting human brains for at least 200,000 years. We can't see it in fossils, but we can see its echoes in every ancient culture we've ever studied. Egyptian medical texts from 3,500 years ago describe what they called a heart that was weak. Sleeplessness, loss of appetite, withdrawal. The Greeks called it melancholia, literally black bile. Indigenous cultures around the world had specific words for what we now call grief, despair, and emotional collapse, long before anyone wrote a textbook. But here's where it gets interesting. In none of those ancient cultures was depression treated as a personal failure. It wasn't a chemical bug to be silenced. It was a signal, a sign that something in the group, in the rhythm of life, or in the person's role had broken and needed attention. And the response wasn't isolation. It was the opposite. The whole tribe leaned in. Here's the brutal math of the Stone Age. A small tribe was usually around 25 to 50 people. Lose one hunter, one mother, one elder, and you lose 2 to 4% of your entire workforce, defense, and knowledge base in a single stroke. There was no replacement. There was no hire someone new. So when a member of the tribe started withdrawing, falling silent, refusing food, or staring into the fire all night, the community didn't shrug. They couldn't. In modern life, when someone goes quiet for 2 weeks, we often don't notice until much later. In a Paleolithic tribe, that kind of silence would have been noticed within hours. Not because they had advanced empathy training, but because their survival literally depended on every member. And what they did next is where it gets fascinating. People whose perception of the world was different, those we'd today call deeply sensitive, anxious, depressed, even psychotic, weren't pushed out. They were given new roles. Roles the tribe specifically needed. Healer, storyteller, dream reader, keeper of plant knowledge, watcher at the night fire. Anthropologists studying surviving hunter-gatherer cultures today, like the Hadza in Tanzania or the San in Botswana, still see traces of this. The person who feels things too deeply isn't shunned. They're often the one chosen to lead grief rituals because they already feel what others can't. The thing modern society treats as a disorder, ancient society treated as a specialty. If there's one thing ancient humans did better than us, it's this. They didn't process emotions alone. They processed them around fire. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent decades studying how the Juhowansi people in southern Africa spent their evenings. She made a stunning discovery. During the day, conversations were practical: work, hunting, logistics. But at night, around the fire, the conversations changed completely. Around 81% of nighttime talk became stories, myths, dreams, and memories of people who had died. The campfire wasn't just warmth. It was the first group therapy session in human history. Storytelling did something modern psychology is only now catching up to. It externalized pain. Instead of carrying grief silently in your chest, you spoke it out into the dark, and the whole group held it with you. Your loss became their loss. Your fear became their story. And by morning, you weren't carrying it alone anymore. Modern neuroscience has confirmed what the fire circle knew instinctively. When you share an emotional story in a group that listens without judgment, your brain releases oxytocin, the same chemical released during hugs and breastfeeding. Cortisol drops, heart rate slows. The nervous system literally rewires toward calm. We didn't invent talk therapy in the 1890s. We just put walls around it and started charging by the hour. Now here's something that will hit hard for anyone who's lost someone recently. In ancient cultures around the world, grief was mandatory community work. When someone died, the tribe didn't expect the family to be strong or give them space. They moved in. Wailing rituals could last for weeks. Bodies were prepared together. Stories of the dead were repeated nightly so they wouldn't fade. The grieving person was never alone, not even for a single hour, sometimes for months. Compare that to modern grief. 3 days of bereavement leave, a quiet funeral, and then back to work, alone, expected to process it privately. It's not that ancient people felt less pain, they felt the same pain. They just didn't believe one person could carry it alone. Anthropologists who study traditional mourning rituals consistently find one pattern. Societies with strong communal grieving show significantly lower rates of long-term depression after a loss. The pain wasn't fixed, it was shared, and sharing it changed everything. There's a phrase from the African philosophy of Ubuntu, "I am because we are." It's not poetic decoration. It was, for most of human history, literal survival mechanics. You couldn't fall apart because the people around you were already holding pieces of you up. So if all of this worked, why did we abandon it? We didn't exactly. We just out-engineered ourselves. Around 12,000 years ago, agriculture changed everything. Tribes grew into villages, villages into cities, cities into nations. And somewhere along the way, the 25-person tribe, the unit your brain was built for, disappeared. By 1900, the average person still lived in a community where they knew 100 to 150 people by name. By 2020, that number had collapsed. A 2023 study found that the average adult in the United States has just 3 close friends. 16% have 0. We live in cities of millions and feel completely alone. We process grief over text message. We treat depression as a personal failure to be hidden, not a tribal signal to be heard. Our brains haven't caught up. They still expect the fire circle. They still expect the night stories. They still expect someone to notice when we go quiet. And when no one does, the brain doesn't know that it's because we live in a different world. It just registers one thing: nobody is coming. That's not depression. That's a 200,000-year-old alarm going off in a world that stopped listening. The lesson isn't that we should go back to caves. It's that the cure our ancestors built, radical community, shared stories, shared grief, a role for every kind of mind, is still inside us. We just have to rebuild it on purpose. Call someone today. Tell them about your week. Listen to theirs. Eat a meal together with no phones. Sit by a real fire if you can. These aren't trendy wellness tips. They're 30,000-year-old medicine your nervous system still remembers. The Stone Age didn't have antidepressants, but it had something we've quietly lost. People who would have noticed. Subscribe if you want to keep uncovering the ancient instincts that are still secretly running your life today. And tell me in the comments, what one thing helps you most when sadness hits? Your answer might be exactly what someone reading this tonight needs to hear. Stay curious, and stay close to someone.